Well, welcome, fight friends. TitlePetersonJean.com. Got Brandon Stubbs, Gordy Tamao, Steve Gallegos. It's been a minute. Getting back in the groove into 2014. We had a great year of boxing and just kind of steamrolling into this new year as well. This past weekend, totally jam-packed weekend full of fights from left to right. I want to kick things off over here from the Friday night Fight Night series here, where we had Curtis Stevens coming back off of his loss to Gennady Golovkin, coming up against a guy that has a pretty good record on his resume here, and Patrick Majewski, maybe not known a whole lot by people here stateside, but nonetheless, we didn't get to see too much action here as Curtis Stevens came in and destroyed him in 46 seconds, I believe it was. Brandon, what's your overall thoughts of Stevens coming back after his loss to Golovkin and just dispatching Majewski in 46 seconds here? I mean, was this enough of a mile marker to show that he's rebounded here, or is it too soon to tell type of deal?
It's going to be kind of too soon to tell right now with Curtis, but we kind of expected this to happen. His promoter was going to find him someone that would be, that he could showcase his skills against, who would make him look good again and kind of take the tarnish, take some of the polish off of that loss that he had to Triple G, kind of say, okay, Stevens can still be a devastating puncher. He just might have ran up against someone in Triple G who's just way too much for him. Mm-hmm. But we're going to get him somebody in the ring with him that he can showcase those skills, that devastating KO power, and that's exactly what he did Friday night. It was a good showing on his part. It may be still early to tell if he can really hang with the big dogs in the middleweight division, but, it just kind of is what it is. It's going to be slim pickings for the champion, so he's going to be able to get into the payday.
Sure. Well, already, they're looking to throw him in the mix with the big dogs. At least that's what Rumorville has to say. On the top of that food chain list, there, Peter Quillen. Steve, what do you think? Do you think too quick to throw him in the mix with a guy like Quillen, or based off of his last performance, against Rosado? Is he still a guy that's a good matchup for a guy like Quillen? What do you think?
I think it's a good matchup. I think those two match up very well. I would have been happier last November if he would have matched up against Quillen instead of Triple G. Quillen's not as devastating of a puncher as Triple G. Styles match up a lot better. The promotion would be great because it's an all-Brooklyn matchup, being the fact that both of them are from Brooklyn. They could throw that in the Barclays Center, and you can be for the unofficial Brooklyn Middleweight Championship. When I was on the phone with Curtis Stevens before his fight with Triple G, he actually had said that, he's willing to fight Quillen. All Quillen got to do is sign the contract. And it's a pretty makeable fight, being the fact that Stevens is not tied to any one particular network, and the fact he's with Main Events, which is not, part of the whole top-ranked Golden Boy Cold War. So I think it's a pretty easy fight to make. Why not do it?
Yeah, why not? I wouldn't mind seeing those two get it on either there. Jump starting into this weekend here, we had two cards going on almost simultaneously here at the same time, but kicking off on the HBO telecast here. We had heavyweights coming back in. Bryant Jennings, getting his first shot on the HBO airwaves here against Arthur Szpilka, the Polish fighter who initially was denied entry into the States here for visa issues, eventually made it. Jennings and him went in and threw it down in a pretty entertaining fight, I thought so myself. 6th round, Jennings ends up dropping him with a couple of nice body shots and then ends up finishing him off up towards the 10th in the final round. They started talking pretty big on Jennings right after that about, hey, he's now ready in the mix for a big mega fight here, that maybe he's the next or only great American heavyweight type of deal, totally dismissing some other people. I won't drop names just yet there. But, Brandon, what's your overall interpretation of Bryant Jennings coming in and dispatching Szpilka here and now campaigning for a big shot?
Well, it was a minor step up in competition for him, but overall I thought the fight was a very sloppy heavyweight fight. I did like the body work he did put in, how he was able to drop him with those body shots that you had mentioned, but I still see there's a lot of holes in Bryant Jennings' game. But the thing is, you still have to also keep in mind is he hasn't boxed for as many years as other fighters. He came into boxing late. So a lot of those techniques and defensive styles that heavyweights of his age may already have developed from boxing for years, he hasn't developed yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as he steps up higher in competition, if he goes to challenge for a belt. But I don't really agree with HBO's particularly saying he's the best American heavyweight out there. It kind of is what it is because pickings there are slim. But I thought was a very crazy remark for them to make after watching last night's performance.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That created kind of a nice buzz online, so it was kind of interesting to get the opinions out there and whatnot. Moving forward onto the main event of that card there, arguably one of the most talented up-and-coming fighters here, and Mikey Garcia coming up against tough and rugged Mexican Carlos Burgos. And this fight turned out to be, somewhat of a snoozer. Some people could have said it was predicted, others no. I actually thought it was going to be a little bit more action than what it tended to be. Kind of had a Rigondeaux-ish type of fight. Although, interestingly enough, you saw HBO praising Garcia's performance, and makes you wonder, okay, why not a guy like Rigo if they're going to be praising this type of fight as well? A couple things that go into question with that fight there that I want to initially start and asking why, Brent, I want to get your opinion on this. Why New York City for Garcia's fights? What's Bob's logic, do you think, behind placing him over in New York City when they could be building a fan base for him over on the West Coast? What do you think?
I think from Bob's aspect, he may be looking at it and saying, we know we can already have that audience on the West Coast or in Texas, where there's a heavy Mexican and Latino population. Let's expose him to the New York and East Coast crowd and maybe build a buzz and build a fan base there. Otherwise, if that's not their intention, otherwise than that, I have earthly no clue why they have him over there. I don't know if they have a contract or they have to have so many fights in Madison Square Garden as far as a deal that Top Rank may have with them. If it's not to build him a buzz on the East Coast, there's no other reason to have him fighting in Madison Square Garden and in New York as much as they have.
Leading up into the fight in a little ways backwards as well, we have a guy like Gamboa, who's been constantly on social media and everywhere else, and his promoter as well, campaigning for a bigger fight. And Gamboa's been on the back burner for a minute. In his last performance, he didn't look too hot, to be honest. Stylistically matching these two up, which has been kind of buzzing around now, especially even after last night. Steve, what's your thoughts on a Garcia-Gamboa matchup?
It's either hit or miss with that. We could either have a really interesting fight, with some ebb and flow, we can end up having a snoozer like we did last night, You just don't know. I think it could end up making for a sloppy fight with the way Gamboa fights, It could end up being, kind of a rough, foul-filled affair. It's a fight that's actually very makeable, being the fact, that they're both promoted. Well, no, Gamboa's no longer promoted by Top Rank, promoted, by 50 Cent. But still, pretty makeable fight because, Gamboa is not tied to any particular network. And, of course, there's, rivalry between Gamboa and the whole Oxnard Garcia camp after the little incident with Brandon Rios, in which he pulled out of the fight. So I think, matching him up with Mikey would make, for an interesting promotion, interesting type of fight.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what kind of cards play out with these two next there. Garcia, definitely a skillful fighter. I think anybody that he gets put in the mix with is going to be an interesting showcase because he has that boxing technicality to kind of neutralize almost anybody's style, but it can also get the tendency to turn out into a boring fight if it's made that way. So we'll see what's up with both of them. Jumping on over to the Showtime telecast here and the co-main event, I was really looking forward to this one myself as well. We had Jermell Charlo taking on Gabriel Rosado, the 23-year-old middleweight prospect, and coming up against Rosado, who's been in the game for a minute himself and been through some wars as well. We saw this kid come in, and toughest test to date. A lot of people were thinking maybe he was just going to have too much pressure on him from Rosado's style, but totally opposite tended to come out. We saw Charlo using some great footwork, great boxing ability, and really neutralized Rosado. Made him look frustrated and now out of his element here. Brandon, what were your thoughts?
I wasn't wowed by anything Charlo did. I thought he fought a very smart, efficient fight. It was the kind of fight he needed to fight against a guy like Gabriel Rosado. The thing is, I just wonder if he has killer instinct to really go at an opponent when he may have him hurt or if he has him weakened. He had Gabe's cut, but I didn't really see him focusing more shots directly towards that cut. Mm-hmm. So I'm still not 100% sold on Charlo yet. really either one of the brothers. I know the other one, Jamel, will get his title shot against Carlos Molina here in the coming months. I'm just not 100% sold on what I saw besides his footwork and his movement, that he's really a top 10 guy here at 154.
Interestingly, seeing Rosado in this position here, where he seems to cut virtually every fight. It's kind of his style. He's just a come forward brawler. He even stated himself that it's kind of how he's forced to fight. But like you said, you didn't see Charlo go in there for the kill, even though he stated, after the fight that he saw the cut. He was thinking of focusing on the cut and going after that. But at the same time, it kind of looked like maybe he was just trying to get some rounds in or didn't know how to finish. So what's on the plate next for Rosado is in question here right now. A lot of people were talking about, okay, is he officially considered now a gatekeeper now, or is this just another tough luck draw for Rosado? What do you think, Steve?
I hate to say it, but it looks like he is starting to become that gatekeeper stepping stone for other fighters. It's his fourth loss in a row. Being that it is the top-tier fighters, and some of them, have been, some tough losses, it's just too bad, that Gabe's, going to be reduced to this, because he's a great fighter, great personality, never in a bad fight. It's, he's one of them fighters who's probably not going to get his title shot. It's going to just come up a little bit short. So, I think it's pretty much near the end of the road for him.
Well, and if it is, he's had a pretty good run. The guy has never been in a bad fight that I've seen. They're always entertaining, but I guess the time will only tell on that one. And leading into the main event of the Showtime card here, we had Lamont Peterson coming back after a loss to Lucas Matisse in devastating fashion there as well against the Haitian-born Canadian Jean. And a lot of people were kind of on the fence about this one here. They're questioning that, hey, Peterson may not be all the way back yet mentally coming off of that Matisse loss. Jean, some people weren't too familiar with him, but he obviously carries some skill set and had garnered himself a title shot here against Peterson. Early in the fight, we seen Peterson in a little bit of trouble there. He got chin checked early, and that was Jean's plan to come in and really apply the pressure early. And then all of a sudden we've seen Peterson switch up gears and pick up steam leading into the fight. He started to look really, really comfortable in there and ended up taking a decision on that. What do you think, Brandon? Do you think this is a pretty good performance by Peterson and saying that, hey, he's still a force to be reckoned with in the division? Or what are your thoughts overall?
It was definitely a good comeback fight for him to have after, suffering a knockout loss like he did last year. Jean wasn't a very dangerous opponent punching power-wise, so it was a good matchmaking there on Golden Boy's part, finding him someone that wouldn't possibly expose his chin again. And when he did get hit, he did show the ability to take that shot. Granted, he was wobbled, but he was able to stay upright. Mm-hmm. But, one thing that could get him in trouble down the line that seems like happens in all of his fights, he gets off to these slow starts, but then turns it on midway or late in the fight. It just may come a point in time where he's going to end up starting off too slow, getting down on the cards too early, and then going to have a knockout or something spectacular happen in order for him to pull out the fight. But overall, his performance yesterday, I think it was very good and really puts him kind of back in that position amongst the top guys there at 140, and now opens up the possibility for some big matchups for him here later this year.
What do you think about a matchup against Garcia? He's already dropped the name. Wasn't shy to say, hey, before I decide to vacate the division here, let's throw him in the mix with Garcia. What do you think, Brennan?
I think that's going to make the most sense because really, what are the two guys going to fight? Who are they going to fight at this point? Mm-hmm. Unless Maidana or Broner comes down from 147 back down to 140 for a big fight, those two are kind of just destined to meet each other and have that matchup. If Peterson would have beaten Lucas Matisse, he would have gotten that shot at Danny Garcia here last year. So it's one of those things to where it's coming. I think it should happen. It more than likely will happen because the pickings are going to be swing for both those guys at 140 as far as a big fight and a big name to take on. So it's going to make the most sense to make that fight happen, an easy fight to make happen since they're both under the Golden Boy umbrella.
Yeah, both of these guys, actually, I'd really like to see them get in there and trade. It'd be a nice fight. We'll see what happens out of that. And speaking of, we gotta mention something with this. Adrian Broner was actually there on site, for the fights. He even came on board and was talking a little bit about his fight that he had here just recently with Chino Maidana. And, of course, he's still has it in his brain that he wants to come back immediately for that rematch. If they had that rematch clause in effect there, and they're trying to get stuff done for it. Steve, what's your interpretation of him automatically wanting to jump back in? A bad idea coming off the type of performance that he had, or is this kind of a wake-up call, and maybe we're going to see a different side of him?
Wake-up call, I think, I don't blame him for getting in the ring, he wants to get revenge, he made himself look bad, Maidana made him look bad, so, he made
himself look bad, too, with all that humping he did.
What's that?
I said Broner made himself look bad, too, with all that humping he was doing, and then he just got it handed to him.
Yes. All of that, hopefully, it humbled him to an extent. I don't know how much it humbled him, but it's obviously had to done something good for him. So he'll come back this time probably more focused, more ready, and he won't be taking Maidana lightly this time, that's for sure. So it'll make for an interesting fight, probably a different outcome. So, I'm excited to see that one.
Well, and to cap things off here, I want to just throw in a couple plugs here. We got my man Brandon, who's also been able to had the privilege of kicking off his own radio show, Punch to the Face Radio. Brandon, you want to drop listeners with a little bit of info on what it is you're doing and where they can find it?
Absolutely. Every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time, I'm talking all things MMA, reviewing the previous weekend's card bouts. This week I'll be reviewing here the UFC on Fox, which just happened here Saturday night. We'll also be previewing the UFC that will be coming up here this Super Bowl weekend. Possibly guest here this week. I'm not 100% sure. We're still waiting for confirmation. But every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central Time, Punch to the Face Radio through the Bad Culture Network. So just go to badculture.net and you'll be able to see the link there. Every Wednesday night, all things MMA. Definitely check it out. And I appreciate the support from my family here over at TheTitleFight.com.
Most definitely. So go support my boy over there for all you MMA aficionados there. You got some good stuff. Brandon always got some nice words to say. He's got that mouth that's going to end up coming back and giving him dividends here in the end, and you'll see why. So make sure you tune in. Once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. Gordy Tamayo, Brandon Stubbs, and Steve Gallegos with TheTitleFight.com signing off. Until next time.